I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes because what I am about to share with you is genuinely going to change the way you see money forever. Not the way you earn it. Not the way you invest it. The way you think about it. And I promise you, that shift alone is worth more than any stock tip, any side hustle idea, or any investment strategy you have ever heard. Because here is what nobody tells you at the beginning of the wealth conversation. The gap between rich people and everyone else is not primarily a gap in income. It is not a gap in education. It is not a gap in opportunity. Large-scale studies of over 1,000 millionaires have found that wealthy individuals think and feel differently from the general population, and these differences are not just the outcome of having money. They are the actual drivers of it. The thinking comes first. The wealth follows. Which means that if you can change how you think about money, you change what money does in your life. Full stop. Drop a comment right now and answer this honestly. Do you currently think of money as something you earn and spend, or as something you own and deploy? Just be real. I check every comment on this channel. Welcome back to Rich Habits. If you are new here, subscribe right now because this channel exists specifically to give you the mental frameworks that most people never get access to. I want to start with the single most important difference in how rich people think, because everything else builds on top of it. For most people, money is the destination. The goal. The thing they are trying to get to. They think in terms of reaching a number, hitting a salary, getting a bonus, winning something. Money is the finish line. For wealthy people, money is the vehicle. It is not what they are going to. It is what they use to get there. Rich people view money as a resource to be deployed strategically, to create more opportunities, generate passive income, and build assets that appreciate over time. They are not focused on having money. They are focused on what money can become when it is put to work. Think about what that distinction means in practice. If money is your destination, you stop when you get it. You spend it because that is what getting it means. But if money is your vehicle, you never stop it. You keep it moving. You put it into things that produce more money. You think in terms of what this dollar can generate rather than what this dollar can buy. This is why a person who wins a lottery and a person who builds wealth over decades end up in completely different places. The lottery winner reached their destination and spent everything they found there. The wealth builder kept deploying the vehicle and letting it compound. Same amount of money. Completely different outcome. Entirely because of how it was thought about. Now here is the second way rich people think that you need to understand, and I want you to really sit with this one because it is going to challenge something that most of us were taught from childhood. Most people think about what they can afford. Rich people think about what they can own. You probably grew up hearing something like this. Can you afford it? Do you have enough? Is this within your budget? These are good questions and I am not dismissing them. But they are consumer questions. They are questions that frame you as someone choosing between things to buy. They do not frame you as someone building something. Rich people ask a different question. Not can I afford this, but what does owning this produce? They shift from consumer thinking to ownership thinking. And that shift is fundamental. When you think like a consumer, you are always looking for things to get. When you think like an owner, you are always looking for things to build. The consumer buys the new phone. The owner buys the stock of the company making the phone. The consumer pays for the streaming service. The owner owns a piece of the company providing the service. You are already using products and services that are making other people rich. Every time you order from Amazon, pay for Netflix, use Google, or buy a coffee at Starbucks, money is flowing from your pocket to the shareholders of those companies. The question is whether you are only on the spending side of that transaction or whether you have positioned yourself on the ownership side as well. An S&P 500 index fund puts you on the ownership side of 500 of the most powerful businesses on Earth. Every day those companies operate, they are generating value that flows back to you. That is ownership thinking. And once you develop it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. The third difference in how rich people think is about risk, and this one is going to sound counterintuitive, so I need you to follow me carefully. Most people think of risk as something to avoid. They see safety as the goal and risk as the threat to safety. So they keep their money in a savings account, stay in the job they know, avoid investments they do not fully understand, and wait for certainty before making any significant financial move. Here is the problem with that strategy. Inflation is running at 3% or more every single year. A savings account paying below 1% is not a safe choice. It is a guaranteed loss in purchasing power, dressed up in the language of safety. The thing that feels safe is actually slowly making you poorer. Rich people do not avoid risk. They understand risk. They assess it. They manage it. They take smart, calculated risks and accept the discomfort of uncertainty because they know that all meaningful returns come with some degree of risk attached. The wealthy diversify their investments, start side businesses, invest in their own skills, and learn from failures without being destroyed by them because they never bet everything on a single outcome. The difference is not that rich people are reckless and everyone else is sensible. The difference is that rich people have correctly identified that inaction in the face of inflation and opportunity is itself a form of risk. The question is never risk or no risk. The question is which risks are worth taking and which are not. And the wealthy answer that question through research, preparation and diversification, not by avoiding the question entirely. The fourth thinking difference is the one that Tom Corley's research has documented most powerfully across 5 years of studying wealthy and poor households, and it is the question of ownership versus victimhood when things go wrong. 90% of wealthy people in his research attributed their financial outcomes to their own habits and decisions. 78% of people in poverty attributed their financial situation to luck or external circumstances. Now I want to be careful here because I am not saying that external circumstances do not matter. They absolutely do. Life is not equally fair to everyone, and pretending otherwise is dishonest. But here is what the research shows. The people who take ownership of their outcomes make different decisions than the people who do not. They negotiate their salary instead of accepting whatever they are offered. They look for solutions when money gets tight instead of concluding that nothing can be done. They treat financial setbacks as problems to solve rather than evidence that the system is rigged against them. Wealthy people see themselves as the architects of their own financial lives. Everyone else is the architect too, whether they acknowledge it or not. The only question is whether you are making those architectural decisions consciously or by default. Default decisions tend to lead to default outcomes. And default outcomes in America in 2026 mean living paycheck to paycheck with no meaningful assets and no financial buffer between you and the next emergency. I do not want that for you. And more importantly, you do not want that for yourself. The fifth way rich people think differently is about time, and this is the one that explains why so many intelligent, hardworking people never build meaningful wealth. Most people think short term. They think about this month's budget, this year's salary, the next vacation, the thing they want to buy before the end of the year. Their financial decisions are made in a short time frame and evaluated against short-term outcomes. When an investment does not show results in 6 months, they question it. When a strategy feels slow in year 2, they abandon it. Rich people think in decades. They make financial decisions today based on where they want to be in 10, 20, 30 years. They evaluate investments not by what happened last quarter but by what the historical 30-year trend shows. They plant trees whose shade they will sit under in retirement, not in the next fiscal year. Jeff Bezos built Amazon for 20 years before it became the behemoth it is today. Warren Buffett has been compounding the same strategy for over 60 years. The common characteristic of virtually every significant fortune built from ordinary beginnings is time. Not intelligence. Not luck. Not access to secret information. Just the willingness to think far enough ahead that compound interest has room to do what it has always done, which is to turn patience into millions. Here is what I want you to take from everything I just said and actually use. Start thinking about money as a vehicle, not a destination. Every time you receive income, ask yourself not just what it can buy but what it can become if it is deployed wisely. Build the habit of ownership thinking by putting even a small amount into an S&P 500 index fund so that you are on both sides of the economic transaction. Stop framing avoiding action as safety, because in an inflationary world, inaction has a price. Take ownership of your financial outcomes, not because the world is perfectly fair, which it is not, but because the alternative is to hand control to circumstances and default decisions. And start thinking in decades, because the person who will be wealthy 20 years from now is making a decision today that feels slow and invisible but is compounding in the background every single day. The wealthy are not smarter than you. They are not luckier than you. They do not have access to information that is unavailable to you. They simply trained themselves to think about money in a specific way, and that way of thinking produced specific habits, and those habits produced specific results over time. You have just spent the last few minutes learning exactly how they think. The only question now is what you do with that. Tell me in the comments, which of these thinking shifts feels most difficult for you personally right now? Be honest. I check every comment on this channel and I genuinely want to help you work through whatever is holding you back. If this video convinced you of something you did not believe before you clicked play, please give it a thumbs up because that is exactly what it was designed to do. Share it with one person who needs their thinking about money challenge. And subscribe to Rich Habits so you never miss a video. I will see you in the next one.